Call the meeting of the county commissioners to order, right, resolutions. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will open the meeting with public comment. Is there any public comment? Shirley?
Mr. Chairman, me and my buddies are all here. I would like to request the agenda be in the paper. There are some of us in this county that are not on the internet, and we shouldn't have to seek out. There was nothing at the post office. There is an agenda upstairs, but we shouldn't have to come here to look at it. And it's kind of interesting to me that you have part of the meeting, then you have office hours, and then you adjourn. Is the secretary present in those hours of the interim? Or where does the meeting go between agenda items and adjournment? Just a question. There are no minutes in the paper, and the paper changed their publication date to rectify that issue, and it's not happening. And also, when you write your letter to the MDOT about the approaches between here and Lazy HM, would you please mention the fact that between the Mormon Church and Clopton Lane, there are 56 approaches.
Okay.
So I think that's equally as important. And we have no shoulders on the road to avoid an accident. When they redid the road, there are no shoulders.
Okay.
You could maybe get a bicycle by, but not a car. Thank you.
And what's the mile marker out there?
7.
7?
So there are 8 per mile on an average.
Okay.
And I don't remember the number that you talked about between here and Lazy HM, but it seemed to me like it was 50 something. And that's more than 7 miles.
Okay.
And I didn't go to the mouth of the canyon because I come on at Clopton, so, but there are many more between there and the mouth of the canyon, which is the mile marker 9.
Any other public comment? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just real quick, you know, we at the Broadwater Reporter really worked hard to make sure that we are on the front page with the agenda and everything. And this last week, of course, you know, we're all in kind of a changing pattern, so it'll take a little bit to get caught up and make sure that we're right. And that's great and fine as long as we're moving in that right direction. You know, this last week, why we had basically the draft agenda that was sent to us, which absolutely gives no meaning or idea of what's really on the agenda with something that brief. We've asked, you know, to make sure that we get that in advance. The 2 o'clock deadline that we have on for the paper, we received this at like 1:35, and then the new agenda, or the actual final official is what it's labeled, came out on the website within, you know, a pretty short period of time, which kind of gave us the indication that we could have had that at the same time to have publicized in the paper. That's what we're asking for, Mr. Chairman, is to make sure that we are on that front page and be able to get that opportunity. Again, I think one of our folks here and said that. To follow that up, we are getting a bunch of letters in from people that are not online, that are not getting these electronic means of communication. And they're saying, please, what's going on? How come we're not getting this? We have them on file. at the office. A lot of people are saying they want to be anonymous because they don't want to get into things, so I can't, justify reading that into the record. But we have several letters, and they're coming in all the time. So again, it's a people, something that Broadwater County wants to make sure that everybody knows we're a rural community. We need to make sure that we accommodate those that are not hooked up on the super information highway. The other thing that I guess I wanted to bring up, this is both kind of an ongoing situation. I'm going to give you a copy of this because it's really important. We have been trying very hard. I have made, this is speaking personally, I've made some mistakes in the past for not maybe going the full course of the game in order to get the information. To make sure that what I put out there to the public is 110% accurate, and sometimes there's a little bit of a gray area there where you can say, well, did you really mean that, or did you really say that? And that's a situation that I personally have been working on, making sure that I don't go down that pathway, if you will. Last week we received, I'm going to give you folks a copy of this. Again, this is anonymous. I got 3 copies of that. Got an anonymous statement with a letterhead from the Broadwater Hospital that gives a clarification, if you will, on the financial side of what's going on with the hospital, including what's going on with the hospital district. And what we did when we received that, there are several people that have been working on making sure that we have the full story, have received this. And so what I did personally is I went on up to the finance officer of Townsend Health Systems Incorporated and said, number one, I would like to have this information confirmed because it did come anonymous, and I'd like to make sure that it's accurate, and so that we can go ahead and make sure that it's up to date, because it does say it goes back to October of 2018 with these figures. So what we would like to make sure that we would have had from there is to have an updated information, or make sure that it's all accurate that's on there. We were told that no, we're not going to give this until we get a chance to look through everything that's on that, as if maybe it did not come from the office. And so we really have no idea if this information is accurate, which kind of comes back to leading, we cannot go and dig up a truth if it's not in black and white. I have been a long time personally trying to get an accurate accounting, and I get a lot of times personally what we call as a wish list, if you will, of what is costing to fix a building or to add a roofing repair job or something. And we don't ever see a lot of this. And the details underneath those figures certainly reveal some questions that need to be answered. And because this body oversees the financial matters over the district as far as financing coming through to the hospital, we feel it's really important to make sure that we're on the front page with the accurate information. So just wanted to bring that up and share that with you so that we can try and do the best thing we can with accurate information as we move forward with the story. Where it's at right now, we'll have to find out, because again, we're not provided any confirmation on that from the finance department of the hospital. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I believe that's all we had this morning. We hope to be able to work forward and do the right thing with transparency. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Let's see, Daryl, would you like to go ahead with your letter for the MDOT?
Okay, I'll do that. So there's been a lot of concern raised with residents in the Towson and Raidersburg area about the safety of the Amish folks that use Highway 285. And so we've drafted a letter that we're going to send to the Bozeman, Montana Department of Transportation. Hopefully they will be able to do the appropriate studies and signage, and it will hopefully, we'll see if it will protect those folks. So here's a letter that we've drafted. Dear Mr. Stecker, as you may be aware, there is a growing Amish community near Highway 285 between Tossin and Radersburg, Montana. Members of the Amish community use this highway to move about the area, take their children to school, and for commerce. Their mode of transportation is generally non-motorized vehicles such as horse and buggy, wagon, or bicycle. The concern is this mode of transportation is considerably slower than the higher speed vehicle traffic that generally uses this highway. It is easy to misjudge the closing speed of these slower vehicles. Highway 285 is used by local residents and agricultural producers. Additionally, it is a major recreation access to the Elkhorn Mountains. While local residents and agricultural producers are aware of the slower traffic, the first-time or casual user may not be aware of the potential to suddenly come upon these slower vehicles. The majority of Amish users of this highway travel with their families aboard their buggies or wagons. Concern expressed by this commission in our community is the possibility of a tragic accident involving a higher speed vehicle and a family traveling in a horse-drawn vehicle. It's important to note that buggies and wagons are properly marked for visibility and have lighting for night travel. The Broadwater County Commissioners are proposing the proper travel studies be conducted and appropriate signage be placed on Highway 285 to warn higher speed traffic that slower speed traffic may be on the roadway. It is requested that MDOT remain in contact with the Broadwater County Commissioners with the progress of this request to protect the members of our Amish community.
We need a motion to approve signing that letter and sending it.
I absolutely move to sign and send that letter. I think it's excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And I'll second that.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to sign and approve said letter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries.
So I sign it.
You want to sign that up on top?
I did, didn't I?
We also have minutes here from January 14th, 2019.
Move to approve as submitted.
No, second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to approve minutes from January 14th, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. I guess we can go back to Commissioner update now. I think one thing on the agenda, Shirley, we are going to, and Tim, we will try from now on to get that agenda to you. Our deadline is Wednesday at 10. We're gonna try to absolutely not do any more revisions unless there's some kind of an emergency situation, so we'll just make staff aware that if you wanna be on the agenda for the next week, you have to have us by Wednesday at 10.
Perfect.
So then we'll try to have everything final. We'll still post the official on the website, but also we'll try to make sure that that is the match for the one that we send you at 10 o'clock.
Perfect.
And I understand the people not on the internet. We did this to try to accommodate all the agenda stuff. We didn't mean it to influence what the paper was doing or anything. We're just trying to make sure that we have enough time after our meeting on Monday to get everything lined up by Wednesday. So we'll try to stick with those as much as we can.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is, do we need to make that a policy change? Or?
You have to look at that policy and see.
We shouldn't, no, because what we've done in the policy is we're meeting the law.
Okay.
We can go above and beyond that all we
Right.
want, but we can't go under it. So,
Okay.
no, I would say the policy is fine. The only thing is with the official agenda on the website, it's easier for us to give more flavor.
Okay.
The agenda was in the newspaper, but instead of saying, for example, public comment on any subject not on the agenda and that the commission has jurisdiction over, public comment.
Right.
That's the only issue, that's the only difference. So, you know, if we wanted, I guess that what we're trying to do is navigate all the different complaints, and as you hear, you know, we can't do an agenda right without having it nitpicked at every single meeting, and that's fine, that's the way it is, but if we wanna answer those complaints, then we have to do kind of what we've started. If we wanna go back to the way the agenda was last year, we can certainly do that. But in order to put all that additional flavor in, I think this is the best way to do that. We can still provide the public with all the information that we have. There's nothing being withheld, it's just not all the ancillary flavor. So there's no difference.
Okay, well, I guess my
In
concern
substance.
is the changing of the agenda. I mean, once the paper has published the agenda, I mean, I strongly feel that we should not change that agenda.
Yeah.
I know MCA gives us guidelines to how we can change that, and I think we'll follow that. But I think we need to agree not to change that agenda, and if we do, then I think that all three of us need to be in agreement that that change is made,
And that's what we've been doing.
okay?
We've been accused of not, but that is what we've been doing.
Okay.
But with that deadline on Mondays, it was hard to get everything together.
Sure.
The problem is with the newspaper coming out on Fridays and people getting it oftentimes after work, that can't be the only mode of advertising our meetings. So, yeah, I think this is a good plan to get rid of the revised agendas. I think
Okay.
that's important. And, I think that's the number one goal with this, so I totally agree with you.
Okay. It seems like every time we do a revised agenda, it doesn't work out too well for us.
And with the new deadline,
Yes.
maybe we cannot
I
have
think-
any more of
I
those.
think with that new deadline, we should be able to
Yeah,
avoid that.
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah, it hasn't worked out well for anyone.
okay, very good. I think Tim has something.
Oh, yes.
And Mr. Chairman, on that, you know, again, I just would like to reiterate, our position with the paper is to hopefully make sure that we resolve a delay, if you will. When the commission is prepared to move forward with their official agenda on the website by the 2 o'clock deadline, or in your case, you're putting it together at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. If that agenda is ready to go for the website, we are asking for an absolute duplicate copy of what is going out on the website at the same time, rather than, you know, a delay in there, because what happened this last week again, Mr. Chairman, is we got basically the draft agenda, which didn't include everything, and then without any detail. So we just asked that the agenda, when it's set for the official website, for those that are viewing it there, we get that same, if you will, courtesy copy to the paper so that it can be printed to the best of our ability there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One other thing I think it's important to mention, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the minutes are submitted to the paper, they just haven't been printed. They are quite different from the summary, and I don't know if maybe that was confusing folks, but I understand you've continued to submit the minutes so that there's an
Yes.
official minute, so
Yeah.
people have the facts.
Yes, they are submitted to the paper, it's up to the paper whether they print them or not,
Okay.
which I think they have been. I'm not sure.
Right.
Yes.
Just to comment on that matter, yes, we are getting the official minutes, they come from a separate source. Ann is sending them out. There are people that are on the email list that are also getting a copy of those minutes, so that's intact. The change that has taken place, not only here in the commission, but with the paper, has caused just a little bit of a lag in getting everything, making sure that it's put together. So we apologize if we didn't get something in there that was submitted, but at the same token, we are on the front page now, and we're making sure that we accommodate the people of Broadwater County that depend on the paper.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I guess the other thing the office hours that Shirley asked about is that you know, we've only done this, what, maybe 3 times or 2 times since the start of the year. And basically what we're doing is we're just in the office, anybody who wants to come in and talk to all 3 of us. We don't make any decisions. Department heads come in there, if it's an item that has to be agended, then we'll put it on the agenda. But we're basically there to listen to, all 3 people listen to a department head at the same time, instead of having to have the department head come and talk to one of us at a time. And it's open for the public to come in at any time they want to.
So my question is the secretary there too, and is it all recorded? It's still the meeting. That's my question, is how can you have a meeting, then go to your office and listen to whomever without the secretary? You've not adjourned. Where are we there? It looks a little muddy to me. Wouldn't it, maybe, my suggestion might be, have your meeting, adjourn it, and then go have office hours so that it doesn't have to be recorded, or else do it all here where the public can be involved?
That would probably be.
I don't understand how you can have part of your meeting here, then part in the office without the secretary, I'm assuming, and then come back and adjourn. I don't think that's upfront.
Okay. Yes,
Just to follow up on that, Mr. Chairman, one of the things that we've heard a lot of in the county, and again, I'm speaking from my personal position here and experience, anytime under Montana law that we have a quorum of the body that's elected, then discussions and/or decisions can be made. The problem that we do see sometimes, if we do have a full body quorum of commissioners in place to visit with people, and it's not on an agenda. For example, I'll just say, again, this is just an example, that's not fact, but let's say that the road department supervisor comes in and says, we're going to do this, and we need to make sure that this is taken care of, and we won't be able to make a decision today, but the discussion is moving forward without public participation if they didn't know about it. So that comes back to the agenda, Mr. Chairman. If the open meeting, I know you can't say, well, we're gonna predict Joe coming through the door to talk about something, but at the same time, because it is slated as a full quorum in an open meeting process, I think there was mention of having a town hall, being so tied close to the meeting officially where it's adjourned, where is that gray area that it's actually adjourned? I don't know if I worded that right, but it has been a concern, and we would just want to make sure that we don't have to go down that road again. Certainly, it's not any fun to start challenging whether you're here or not serving people. That's what you're here for, and that's what we want to help make sure we, myself and others that come to the meetings, help make sure that the people know what's going on. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I hope I kind of maybe explained our concern there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So I guess, Shirley, listening to what you're saying, you guys would be more comfortable if we adjourned our meeting and then just, the idea was just to make sure that we're available to everybody to come talk to us. Would you be more comfortable with that? Just, I guess I want to understand.
Because I think when you have your meeting and we do whatever we do and you do whatever you do, then I think if the business portion is over, it needs to be adjourned.
Okay.
Then you can go to your office and John Doe and Mary Ann Pace or whoever can come and talk. And that's fine, but it's not an opportunity to create policy or whatever. The public comment perhaps at this point in the meeting has some, we can do it then, but I just don't think it's very transparent if you don't adjourn, go to your office, listen to 1 or 42 people, and then come back and adjourn. I don't think that's what a meeting's supposed to be like, and I don't think Robert Rules Order says anything about that either.
Sure, I understand that, and I think our intent was to make sure that everybody knew that we'd be in our office and that they could come talk to us. I guess a suggestion that was made, and maybe this is something we could consider, is there just be a sign-in sheet, and people that come in to talk could just simply put their name down on it. I don't know, what do you guys think? Would that be And then at least there's a record of people who they came in to talk to us.
Right, are you having quite a few people after you leave this room and go to your office? Are there quite a few people that are coming to talk to you?
I don't know,
I
I
mean, are
guess
there
I'd say,
some-
not
I don't
really, but,
Okay, and I realize the point of this is to be available for all of us to
Mhm.
talk to you. But I don't think it needs to be included in the meeting before adjournment. That's my issue, I guess. I think the meeting needs to be adjourned, then go upstairs.
Let's see, move on to the 10-15 lease agreement, and set market rate for county-owned buildings used for for-profit business. This is the lease agreement with Doc Campbell and the clinic next door. Do you have something for us?
I got a little bit of an update for you. Before I do that, I want to cover something. We did receive, and you probably know this, a $25,000 contribution from Granite County for the
Yes.
Barris litigation.
Yes.
So very grateful for that, and I recommend we do some kind of a thank you letter or something to them. I've reached out to multiple other counties that have been involved in the case and asked for a similar thing. We're working with the Attorney General and his office on asking these other folks to contribute. Like, I don't know if there will be more or not, but I certainly are asking. So with that in mind, next Monday and Tuesday is 2 more days of hearings on the Barris case, and the posture of it is specifically dealing with asking the court to order him to be involuntarily medicated as part of his mental health treatment. And so we had 3 days of hearings in December. Those were primarily, that was all our case. It was, we had Dr. Virginia Hill, who's the director of the state hospital, or at least the chief doctor on the forensic unit there. We had a detective from Department of Criminal Investigation that explained a lot about the case to the judge. And then we had an expert witness named Dr. Alan Newman from California, who provided really top in the country level of testimony and analysis on these issues. And that was due to the defense having, and that's what they'll present next week, is they have an expert witness named Dr. Robert Cloninger, who's from St. Louis, Missouri, who's considered the preeminent defense expert in this issue in the country, probably in the world. And so to match the level of expertise that he had, that's why we brought in Dr. Newman. So next week we expect 2 days of hearings. And the focus will be Dr. Cloninger's defense testimony, and then we have the chance for rebuttal as well from Dr. Newman or other witnesses if needed. I think you've received an invoice that I provided. It's very hefty. So we're going to spend some more money next week. This is why I'm continuing this outreach to the counties. One of the things that may happen is counties that may give us a positive response may say we can't do it this year, but we can do it in our budget after, beginning July 1. So that may be a reimbursement or a contribution to us that doesn't come right now, but that does come. In the legislature, there is a bill dealing with expert witnesses. So what's happened is the court administrator and the Supreme Court Chief Justice McGrath said that they are not providing any more payment for court testimony and travel costs for expert witnesses. And so there's a bill in the legislature to change that to Department of Justice, as well as some funding that would go with it. That funding is it's basically first come, first served for prosecutors across the state. So we would gobble that up instantly. So we are looking at some other options of how to raise some additional funds for that. But either way, we're still going to be supporting that effort because we certainly need, the defense is getting all their stuff funded by the states. We certainly need some some corresponding funding from the state for these experts, especially for counties like ours, small counties that just can't compete with that kind of litigation fund.
So, Corey, can I ask you, do you know, or is it information, how much money has the state spent on his defense versus how much money the county has had to pay?
Well, it's, for his defense, it's all state. There's
So how
no-
much, do we know, can we find out how much that is?
It's obtainable, it's one of those things that would be, a difficult question for me to ask, since I'm litigating against them. Certainly a member of the public could ask that, if that makes sense.
And who would we have to ask for that? Would that be the public defender's office? or
Public
would it
Defender's
be-
Office, yeah.
Okay,
That wouldn't be appropriate for me to ask that question, because I'm prosecuting it.
okay.
So, just kind of on a bookend of the previous discussion on your office hours, you know, my recommendation would be that you adjourn a meeting before you go to office hours. I think I'm the one that proposed the sign-in sheet, and I think that makes sense. Name, and when they came, when they left, maybe which commissioner they talked to, and what the subject was. I think that's appropriate. I'm still back to where I was 3 weeks ago when I told you, in my opinion, you shouldn't be even doing that. You should have separate offices and avoid all discussions unless you're here, and feel free to have long Monday afternoon meetings here with the camera rolling and the public here, and you make sausage. That's that's the kind of if you do that, you're gonna be above reproach. You're not gonna have people coming in accusing you of closed door meetings behind the door. That's what I would recommend you do. So failing that, if you wanna do the office hours, my guess is that a lot of folks can come in, and I think it's probably productive in terms of having conversations. I absolutely see the upside in terms of talking to people, learning stuff in a more relaxed atmosphere. It's obvious that there's an upside there. The downside is the concern from the public that it's being done without transparency. So whatever you can do to increase transparency is, I think, important. Certainly no decision should be made in those meetings, because it's not on the agenda. I mean, that's an easy thing to lose, so. But, that's my recommendation. As for the county building with Doc Campbell, I was able to visit with Doc Campbell and his attorney. They're preparing a counteroffer. One of the things, so this is where we left off. Where we left off with you last week was the idea of doing a lease and then a transfer of ownership and removal is something that we're not gonna proceed with. It'll be just a straight lease with Doc Campbell and his practice, and at the end of that period, then the county will decide whatever it's gonna do with the building, whether fix it up and put somebody else in it, whether remove it, whether sell it. You know, you could take it out and use it for, I know they're often looking for buildings for training for firefighters, for structural violence. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So my understanding is that right now we're focused on just a straight lease, and then expiration of the lease, you will make a decision at that time on what to do with the building, including removal costs and all that stuff. So that's what I've communicated to them. They're gathering some data, and I understand you guys are gonna gather some data on fair market rates for leases. One thing that they are gathering, are gonna ask, and I'm gonna probably ask Debbie Kelly myself, it's not clear to me the last time there was an update of the fee that the county was paying Doc Campbell for being the county health officer. I understand it's $5,000. Their recollection is that it's been $5,000 for many, many years. So I expect their counteroffer to be something like, okay, if we want to talk about fair market rate for rent, then let's talk about fair market rate for serving as a county health officer. And they asked for a little bit of time to get that data, so that's the update I can give you right now. But my expectation is we can probably pretty quickly get down to what a lease would look like and how long it would be. And I expect that they're gonna come back and ask for 3 years rather than 2 years. So I'll let you know when I hear definitively.
Okay.
One of the things I would like is more information on the equity issue. MCA, anything that helps explain what that is, how it would apply here. There, of course, was a quitclaim deed, so how does that affect? I'd like a bigger, more full picture of the equity issue.
So equity is not in statute. That's specifically why it's equity. So you go back to the courts of England in however long ago. I'm not gonna give you a date like I know what I'm talking about, but there used to be a court of law and a court of chancery or a court of equity. And when somebody's solution didn't fit into what the established laws were, then they sent them to the court of equity, or the court of chancery for an equitable decision. So what America has done is combined those two courts into a single court. So a judge, when looking at a case, if the black letter law doesn't apply, then he or she will say, then the parties will say, this is a case of equity, not a case of law. And then there's this long body of case law, going back to English common law, that applies in cases of equity. I'll give you an example. There's a thing called specific performance. And equity often applies to unique property, such as real estate. Okay, in this case it doesn't, I'll tell you why in a second. But there's a thing called specific performance, where if I decide to sell my house to Commissioner Hochberg, we make a deal, we exchange some kind of consideration. Back in the old day, it used to be like a pinch of salt or clod of dirt or whatever. And then we have that agreement, and then the day before I say, no, I'm not doing it, he's entitled to specific performance, because each piece of real property in the world is considered unique, and the person that bargained for that is entitled to the specific performance of possessing and owning that unique piece of property. And it's hard to do that in necessarily monetary values, because he may have something unique about that piece of property that he likes. Same could go for a unique heirloom like a Stradivarius from the 1600s. That's the only one of its kind in the world. If someone bargains for it, you can't give them a substitute that's equal to that. So that's the world of equity. This case, it's a little different, because the modular building is not considered real property because it's modular. It's considered personal property even though it's large. So it wasn't a quitclaim deed, it was a bill of sale, which is what it should be. And so that changes some wrinkles, put some different wrinkles in this thing. The equity comes from the fairness point of view. If again, back to Commissioner Beaufort, we make this deal to, I'm gonna sell him my house, and I say, you can come in 30 days before and you can put in those cabinets that you really want in the kitchen. He comes in and he spends $10,000 pulling out cabinets and putting in cabinets, and this is part of our deal. And then I say, the deal's off, I'm keeping my house, I really like the new kitchen. Then I have taken advantage of the benefit that he conferred upon me and my property, and the court's gonna say that's unfair. Equitable meaning basically fairness. So all those factors go into it. So in this case, if you have a tenant who's been in the building forever, and on what appears to be a non-written agreement between Dr. Campbell and the hospital in settlement of a dispute for many, many years, then if there's no written agreement, what the court would do is actually look at their conduct over the past 15 years and say the way they acted is a illustration of their agreement. So we will say, here's their agreement based on how they acted in settling whatever dispute first led to this whole agreement, which is that he has access to and use of that building owned by the hospital so long as he provides medical care at the facility. So basically what happened is at some point they said, revoking, you no longer have privileges to the hospital, and we're transferring the building to the county. It'd be really easy for him to claim an equity damage here. Number one, I wasn't even given advance notice or consent on transferring this building, and I have tenant rights that are also part of equity. And then on number two, then if I'm going to be moved out, I have all these expectations that were built into my practice. So it's long, it's complicated, it's super expensive. I assure you that Dr. Campbell, nor the hospital, nor the county has any, I hope, interest in litigating this, because this would be one of those Supreme Court cases they would study someday in law school for what not to do. Bottom line is, if we're gonna go to a lease agreement that's acceptable to both parties, that's what we need to do and move on with our lives.
So did they give you a time when they were gonna come back with this counter offer?
The question is, how long is it gonna take to get the data on the last update on his fee for being a county health officer? So I'll check with Debbie and see if she has an estimate of how long that'll take. So,
And that's one of those that's not necessarily a guarantee. Since it's over the $2,500, we should be looking at, is that a position we advertise to? So there would be those two different pieces with that.
okay, all right. I'll take that into account. I'm gonna be gone next Monday. I'll be at court in Helena for the Barris hearing, so. Just letting you know, Monday and Tuesday I'll be gone.
Okay.
You got anything else? I'm gonna run back. We're filing some stuff today in court, so, sound good?
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thanks, Cory.
Okay, let's see, we'll move on
Well,
to,
can we still have a discussion on this? I mean, if we're gonna have a counter offer, shouldn't there be an offer? So we were each gonna do homework, find out what the market rate is. I think we should at least discuss that, shouldn't we?
yeah.
Or would you
yeah.
wanna just table it?
Yeah, well, I think we should. I talked to Marcia Biber, she said that she didn't have anybody that charged by the square foot, almost all of them were monthly rate. And what Daryl has, it seems to be like $650 is pretty much the going rate for, and I don't think it, and $650 plus utilities, right?
Per square foot.
Per month, I
Oh,
mean.
per
that's
month,
basically-
yeah. The information I got from Jeannie, and I'm getting a clarification from her. Her figures actually didn't really, the math didn't work out, and I think her decimal points were in the wrong place on the figures she gave me.
All right.
So I wanna get a confirmation from her. So, yeah, I think based on what she gave me, and I guess I really don't wanna say it till I get that information for sure,
Sure.
but I think it's gonna be in that area that Mike was talking about.
$6.50 a square foot?
No, $650 a month.
$650 a month.
Yeah.
Normally, everybody, from what Marcia told me, is they're just happy to get somebody in the building and they're not really charging square foot rates.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a little bit different information. I talked to a couple of our realtors and different businesses who've rented or
Okay.
leased. I have a couple of extras here. So what I got was a warning. Without any kind of a lease, anything and everything that happens there is our responsibility. So we need to get something in place. It's been 2 years. Waiting any more time is just excessive. The other bit of advice was that we should pay the sewer and water, either by tacking it onto the rent or by covering it within the rent, depending on what the rent would be. The idea being, if somebody decides they don't want to pay for the water and it gets shut off, there's a re-plug-in charge, or if they allow water damage and it harms the building, that becomes an issue for us. So it's a protection for us, a protection for the building. But they said that you can go either way on the heat and electric. So typically, the leaser pays the water and sewer, and the leasee pays the heat and electric. Maintenance, I asked about that, and they said pretty much you can put anything in your lease agreement that you want. One of the people I talked to, she said, when I do a lease agreement, I am protecting the leaser. So that was the perspective that that person was coming at. So there is a 3,000 square foot building, so we think the triple wide is about $31.95. There's a 3,000 square foot building that's renting right now at $12.50 a month. There is a residence upstairs with that. Residents would rent for less. I don't know what the sewer and water would be. The guesstimate was about 150. So you'd either, include that in the 1,250 or tack it on for 1,400 a month for the space. The other one was the price per square foot, and that is based on a comparable with the professional building. That would be about $1,330 per month. So just $5 a square foot divided by 12 equals $1,330. The professional building does pay the sewer and water, but it's a shared space, so they have a common bathroom that everybody uses, and the smaller offices at $5 a square foot don't have water. The other one was based on some of our past leasers in the community, and this has been a number of years. But when we had folks who were renting space for dental, eye, and chiropractic, they were at $8 a square foot. Give or take, that was the average. And so that would be $2,130 per month. We don't have, those have all purchased their buildings now. And then the last one was what we did with Department of Revenue when they were here in the courthouse. So again, shared bathroom. They didn't have any water in their office. They were paying $29.29 per month, and that's about $11 a square foot. So those are just some of the options that we have, and then with the 650, put that into the mix. And I appreciate you'll be getting more information from Jeannie or from Marcia.
And did they mention how maintenance was handled in these buildings at all?
It depends on the lease. So, one person said if you want to talk about, the need for a new roof or the need for new siding, you could actually write it into the lease that you split it, that it's the responsibility of the owner of the building, depending on the history, that it's the leasee that would pay that. So we could actually determine what's best for the taxpayers and put that into our lease agreement. And one person said, you're doing this for the taxpayers, right? Well, yeah, that's of course who we have to focus on. Number one is the people paying the bill, which is the taxpayers. We could also have, she said, if you're talking about things like doorknobs, stuff like that, she said you put that on the leasee. You do not want to be hamstrung with any of the everyday maintenance, cleaning, that kind of stuff. She said put that on the leasee. So I would imagine, Mike was in here a while ago, I would imagine we'd want to work with him and see what he suggests as far as a maintenance agreement. We don't want to overtax him and his staff. And that'd have to be a consideration. So
our concern is basically with the major, like the structural things of the building that we would be concerned about, since it is our building, right?
Right. But it hasn't been ours except for the last 2 years.
Right.
So how much of that history do we feel the taxpayers are responsible for?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said that we'd want to engage Mike in that agreement.
So, some of the history in this building, who originally paid for this building?
County did.
The county? Did
Oh.
the county originally buy this building? Do you know, Ann?
I do not know.
Anybody out there know?
I thought it was owned by THS up until 2 years ago.
Yeah, there's a contract in there, in those files, the county paid for that building.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
So,
Blaisdell Construction put it in there.
so I think it's important for us to look at that and see what its initial cost was. And then let's work from there a little bit. What do you think?
That's good with me. I just think we need to be looking at how we are equitable, for the word that's been used a lot today, but as a government entity, and this is just where I come from, I don't believe we can be undercutting our other business folks. So just because we have bigger pockets doesn't mean that we can undercut what they're trying to rent their buildings for. I think we should be equitable as close as we can so that we complement our local businesses and don't harm them. And we need to be fair to the taxpayers, because in the end, this is their money, either spent or received as revenue.
So since we've taken possession of this building, it's now a county asset
Mhm.
that we need to protect, basically.
Right,
Okay.
right. So, I would suggest that we have, maybe this on the agenda for, next week, and have maybe the counter by then, so we have something to work with,
I'll be gone
or at
next
least
week.
discuss.
I'll be in court next week. won't
But
be
we
here.
could discuss it, and then, maybe let you know kind of what direction we wanna go. As far as a maintenance agreement. how
Will that be
would
helpful in your discussions with,
Well, I would, I mean, I guess if you guys wanna take over negotiations, at the end, I'll just write up whatever you do, that's fine with me. If you want me to do it, then I'd rather be in on all the different significant things that are gonna happen.
I'm fine waiting, maybe till next Wednesday, but the thing is it's been 2 years. It's been way long to get just to this point of even having this discussion, and we're 100% responsible and liable for everything that happens over there. We're not protecting the taxpayers, so every day we wait, we are not protecting the taxpayers, our citizens. That's where I'm coming from.
I think we'll table this until next Monday, and then we can discuss we'll find out what I'll dig out that contract and find out what that building was worth.
Okay, and get a clarification
And get a
from
clarification
Jean.
from Jeannie on those rates.
Sure.
Okay,
okay, pretty good.
so we'll table this until next Monday.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Corey. Community Development Planning, Nicole Brown, continue county board appointments and set liaison arrangements, assignments.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
morning.
Do each of you have your sheet that looks like this still?
Yes.
If you need another one, I only printed 3. I have 2 extras if you need them. And I have no new interested board members to bring to you to vote on for any of the boards at this point, so.
Sounds good.
So I guess with that, have you had an opportunity to look over this and fill in the blanks on these boards? Or
Not
discussing here? That's true, okay.
One of the boards that I think we should add to this is the Center for Mental Health. It's a regional board.
Different than the local advisory council?
It is, yeah. The two work pretty closely together, but they are separate. And it's 11 counties, they meet in Great Falls, and they meet on Mondays. We've had Mary Ellen Schnur representing the commission on the board, but I think we would be wise to have a commissioner there at those meetings. We haven't gotten an update. I know she's had a full plate with getting the local advisory council up and going, but I just think we should have some kind of a presence so that we're getting the information that we need. Center for Mental Health, that whole issue does ride very closely with law enforcement, and was a major focus of the special session of the legislature. So us not being engaged, I just don't think is a good idea.
So what have you guys done in the past? Have you just kind of basically split them up kind of equally? Is that what you've done, or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so Michael hasn't been involved in this process, so this is new for both of you. But yes, what we used to do is kind of start at the beginning, at the top, and go down. We each kind of had a sense of where we wanted to put our efforts and what we were interested in. And after we kind of chose what our desires were, then we split up what was left.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so for me, the weed board, I think that I should not serve on that board. because they do work with my son on occasion, and I don't want there to be any type of a conflict of interest there. So that's one that I will pass on,
Okay.
okay? I'm interested in the airport board.
Okay, all right, I've been serving on that one, it is an excellent board, they're
Mhm.
doing good things, so,
Okay.
yeah, good.
Okay.
I will be sorry not to be serving on that one, but I think you'll be a good fit,
Well, I
and
think
it's nice to switch.
I do, and I think, yes, right, as time goes on, that maybe that's probably important for us to switch boards over a period of time, so that we know what's going on with everything,
Absolutely,
so.
yeah.
Okay,
Through this process also, once we're done here today, I will make sure and notify the board manager of the commissioner appointee or liaison, so that they can add you to their listserv and
Mhm.
and keep you engaged in upcoming meetings.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, what I was gonna ask, have you had any comment or feedback on the training that we're gonna have on the, no,
No.
somebody said anything?
Nobody
Okay.
said anything yet, so.
All right.
And to respond, you had sent an email stating that a few of the board presidents didn't know of the new appointees. I just wanted to clarify that I don't communicate with the board presidents because I don't know when that is. I don't know who that is, I don't know when their elections are. I always communicate with the board manager. So just to clarify for the public record
Sure.
here that I don't communicate with the chairperson because that's constantly moving.
Sure.
I would like to serve on the Center for Mental Health, and with that, I'd be happy to do the local advisory council. Unless you guys wanna arm wrestle.
Not yet.
All right,
And I'd still be interested in doing the Rocky Mountain Development Council and the THS board.
Okay.
Neither one of those are listed on there.
Oh, they're not on here, huh?
I only kept, the only boards I put on here were county boards,
Okay.
ones that you actually are in charge of, but I'm happy to add these on there as well. So Commissioner Delger, you're doing RMDC and THS, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
and I'll continue also, it's good with you guys, with Agency on Aging and BCDC.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? So what happens to your Monday commitment if you're in Great Falls?
We'll have to work that out.
Just a question.
Yep, my commitment is to the full community, and that includes those who have mental health issues as well.
That
And
wasn't
I'm
my
happy to
question,
serve them
but
as well.
that wasn't my
Yeah.
question. but-
And how often did you say they meet?
I think it's the last Monday of the month or the fourth Monday of the month,
Okay.
and that's in Great Falls, generally. So AMBAC, they currently have Vic Sample serving. I would say if you were interested, Daryl, that might be a good fit for you to kind of get a sense of that side of things.
Sure. And we have, who keeps track of when they meet and all that kind of stuff?
The managers
Okay.
would be the ones, so, airport board, for example, Jessie, will send out an email, goes to the commissioner's email, and she will include the agenda and the minutes, and it's generally the second Tuesday of every month at 7 PM,
Okay,
or second, I think Tuesday or Wednesday,
all right.
at 7 PM.
So after we decide here, are you gonna let them know who they're, oh, so they'll contact us?
They will
or-
contact each of you individually,
All right,
each of these boards will. And through this process too, I'm trying to get a better handle, I'm not trying to micromanage the boards, but I want to have all of these boards' bylaws, I wanna know when they meet, I wanna know who that contact person is, and so that they're automatically notifying me of changes. I would love to know who the chairperson of each board is, that's just not been the practice before, that they need to notify me so I can update my list, so it's available to the public. So through this board training, I'm trying to get them geared more towards reporting to me and not, again, not to micromanage, but just to maintain an accurate record. So then hopefully next year I can have on here, airport board meets the second Tuesday. That's news to me because they don't need to report to me, so. But I would like to have that information available to you.